Welcome into the double FU, the FU times two, the fantasy football universe. I'm Jeremy Schulman, hashtag Drake the Snake. This guy over here, and I'm pointing in the right direction somehow, Jesse Moeller, hashtag Adam, is the wide receiver one in New York. Oh, Adams. You had me thinking Thielen, but we are talking Devontae. Jesse Moeller's guy is back, and he is, and that's so disappointing
I feel so good
for all of my Garrett Wilson shares, but we digress. We'll talk about all of that in this episode. This is the Week 15 wide receiver ranking show. We're going to go through everybody on the team. That's myself, Aaron, Jesse, and SC's rankings for Week 15 to get you through the first round of your fantasy football playoffs. But first, Jesse, what's going on?
Oh, just enjoying life, looking at these teams, wondering how we're going to survive and advance to the next round of the semifinals. The bye teams are loving life. That's the good. That's the good. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm excited. It's been an eventful week. Daughter's got walking pneumonia, so we're just keeping it hunkered in at the house. We're trying to survive, much like these teams that are my 60 teams trying to survive and make it to the next week. Will they survive? I don't know. We're going to find out here. So it's a fun week to talk about wide receivers because it's a juicy matchup, particularly for the early guys. Like, I am excited. Our boy Puka did all right. The rest of those boys in that game yesterday, it was ugly. It was ugly.
Yikes. If you started anyone outside of Puka or maybe Kyron or maybe Garendo from the Thursday night game, just look away until Sunday and do not check in on your fantasy lineups. But Jesse gave us a kind of a semi-professional segue, and I will close it out by saying if your team has walking pneumonia into the playoffs, you can turn it around, get yourself healthy with a big Week 15, and make sure that you give a dose of medicine to your opponents. We're going to try and help you do that by deciding who to start at wide receiver. So let's get into it here as I click a button. We got our tier 1 wide receivers, numbers 1 through 6, and these are the guys you're firing up no matter what. Although we have an interesting one at number 6, so we will talk about it. Number 1 is Jamar Chase. Of course, he is the best fantasy wide receiver on planet Earth. Might be the best reality wide receiver on planet Earth, although Justin Jefferson is still that guy, just in a different offense. But Jamar Chase, our consensus one, pretty easily at Tennessee. Puka Nacua, he was our 2. Probably should have been our 8 or 9 the way he performed, but still did his best with almost 100 yards receiving. Didn't get in the end zone, though. Amon-Ra St. Brown against Buffalo. That's going to be a smash spot in what we expect to be a blow-up game for the Lions against Buffalo. He comes in at wide receiver 3. Nico Collins. This man cannot be stopped. The wide receiver 1 in our hearts. Nico plays Miami. Miami has been up and down. We'll see if they're up or down this week. Our guy SC has him at 1 overall. Jesse, you have him at 2 overall. We love us some Nico this week. Justin Jefferson, the aforementioned JJ, is wide receiver 5 going against Chicago, a secondary that has not been as stout of late. And number 6, a must start, Jesse, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill at Houston. Is he back? I think he's back. We got him at 6.
He could be back.
Who do you like here?
Let's talk about a few of these guys. I think they're very interesting. I think Amon-Ra is the one to highlight because we're usually never like Amon-Ra wide receiver 1. This is the week, folks. They're second and put up points, and they get a team that just gives up points to slot wide receivers. It's because of the coverage they play. Oh, yeah, also their safety Taylor Rapp is basically not expected to play, so that's another guy out for them on the back end. So I think Amon-Ra really is the guy out here that stands out. That's going to be an incredibly high floor. And if he gets to the end zone like we did a couple of weeks ago, he could give you that 25-plus point performance. But, we're talking about all these guys. I love all of them. You know my boy Nico. I don't care whatever week it is. It's really hard for me to keep him outside of the top 5, right? It's his projections are out of control. The Texans top 10 in points. And anytime the Texans are top 10 in points, that means Nico gets a little bit of a boost. So we roll with that. And then, we talk about Justin Jefferson. He did have a down game last week. Fully expected Justin Jefferson to come back because Justin Jefferson is so good. It's really hard to contain this man. I know he's playing with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's been really good this year, but it's just not the same level as playing with Kirk Cousins. So, I'm excited for all these guys. It's really good to have. Well, if you play multiple of these guys this week, you're feeling fantastic. And then Tyreek Hill, he's Tyreek Hill. He's getting the targets. I will say from if you do projections and stuff, he's going to be a little bit lower than the rest of these guys, just because we haven't seen it. But his usage has trended upward, where he's getting the targets, he's getting first read looks. He kind of is coming back to the guy he was. So I don't know if it was the injury, the hand injury early in the year, what it was, but Tyreek Hill's coming back for playoffs for those teams like contenders. It's the perfect time. Welcome back, Tyreek. We're happy to have you in our lives. So thank you, Tyreek.
100%. And the Houston Texans, Tyreek's opponent this week, they are stuffing running backs, fifth stingiest to fantasy points against running backs. They are crushing tight ends, fourth stingiest to tight ends, but they are giving up the fourth most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. So we love Tyreek. Jalen Waddle, why not? These guys are going off 14 targets for Tyreek last week. Let's see another double-digit Tyreek performance, and he's going to go off. I love it. Got to click another button here, but here it is. We're going to go to our Tier 2 wide receivers, 7 through 12, and it starts with my guy, our guy, the guy, Courtland Sutton at wide receiver 7 on the week against Indianapolis, and somehow I am not the highest or second highest in our group on Courtland Sutton this week. I love it. Amazing. CeeDee Lamb coming in at number 8. We hate his situation. We love the player, but we love his matchup this week at Carolina. He is our wide receiver 8. Drake London, Drake the Snake. He was both our hashtags before we fired up this show. Drake London at wide receiver 9 against Las Vegas. It's that sweet, sweet Vegas matchup. We hate Kirk Cousins. We hate this offense. We do not like Atlanta. Kyle Pitts isn't doing any favors for anyone. Fantasy or reality teammates. It doesn't matter. Drake London is a stud. He's wide receiver 9. Your guy, Devontae Adams, is wide receiver 10, going up against Jacksonville and catching all the touchdowns in New York. We love to see it. Mike Evans at 11, a little bit lower on him after a down week and a tough matchup, but Mike Evans still got a Mike Evans. Somebody mentioned in our chat that Mike Evans needs like 400 yards to get to that vaunted 1,000-yard season in the next 4 games, but He could do it. So
yeah, sure.
Let's not put it past Mike Evans to do what Mike Evans does at the Chargers. I ain't scared. You're playing him. And then Terry McLaurin against New Orleans. This is a sneaky, delicious matchup for Terry McLaurin. I'm excited to see him potentially go off in this one. Who do you like, Justin?
Yeah, I like all these guys, to tell you the truth. But yeah, Adams is just the guy that has been more of the security blanket for Aaron Rodgers when that offense isn't working. You're seeing Garrett Wilson's usage is awesome, but it's just not connecting the way it is with Adams. Yeah. And it makes sense because they've been playing together for what feels like an eternity, obviously a few years off, but they're reconnected, and Adams has just been a monster. So I get it. I like both those guys, and it's a good matchup. So you just put him in your lineup. You don't worry about it because he's been super consistent. But let's talk about Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton's been incredible. I was personally worried about it with him and Bo Nix because it doesn't seem like that pairing would work well together. Newsflash, they don't have another good wide receiver on the roster. So that means Courtland Sutton just gets all of the looks. He's been one of the better players in the NFL. He's top 10 in expected points per game. And yeah, you're fired up Courtland Sutton this week, which is weird because at the beginning of the year, people were like, oh, Courtland Sutton. It's like, no. Now it's like Courtland Sutton, very nice. You know what I'm saying? So any one of these guys in this range that you could play, Lamb's going against Carolina. We don't got to talk too much about that. That's fantasy points all day. And yeah, Mike Evans. I don't want to fade Mike Evans. Like, it is a bad matchup, so I wonder if this is the game he could get that blow-up spot to get to the 400 points the yards he needs to get 1,000 yards. I don't know if he's going to get it this year, but I'm not going to bet against Mike Evans because he's done it time and time again. Worst comes to worst, Mike Evans gets you those touchdowns, and that's kind of the saving grace for Mike Evans, even when he doesn't get the points. So even if he doesn't have a big blow-up game, he can still be the red zone guy that he always is, get you a touchdown this game. So I think Mike Evans is very much a nice floor play this week.
Love it. You said just a few minutes ago, let's talk about Courtland Sutton. So let's talk about Courtland Sutton. I'm going to ask you a question. In his last 6 games, Jesse, does Courtland Sutton have more or less, over or under 600 receiving yards in his last 6 games? That's averaging 100 yards a game, over or under?
I'll say he's close to it. Maybe slightly under.
It is slightly under. He's got quick math. He's like 560, 570 over his last 6 games. Ridiculous. 3 games at or over 100 yards receiving, and 1 at 97, a couple in the 70s. He's been absolutely crushing with volume and not really scoring a lot of touchdowns. When he does, he's a wide receiver 1. Heck, sometimes when he doesn't, he's a wide receiver 1. The volume is insane. Bo Nix is nicey, and they're playing Indy. You love to see it. Courtland Sutton all day. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
Fire him up. We're going to go to tier 3 of wide receivers, and we're going to start with wide receiver 13. Oops. That was Cooper Kupp. No, it wasn't. Cooper Kupp gave us a big old goose in your lineups. Hopefully you were playing against Cooper Kupp this week, if he's in your lineup, look, just pay attention to the rest of these guys because we're going to tell you who else to start. You need to make some key decisions here. Number 13, Cooper Kupp. Yikes. Number 14, A.J. Brown. We pushed him down a little bit, but Jesse, you cannot get on board because he's your wide receiver 7. I get it. The talent is phenomenal. He's going against Pittsburgh. Does he like his quarterback? No. Does he like his team? Probably not. Is he the Joker to whoever's Batman? Yes, according to social media. A.J. Brown, we'll see. But sometimes a squeaky wheel gets the oil. We'll see if that happens this week. T. Higgins, wide receiver 15 at Tennessee. We don't need to say much more other than contract year. Joe Burrow, T's been going off. So I love it there. JSN, what more do you need to see from JSN to know that he has broken out? He's our wide receiver 16. I don't care who the opponent is. The opponent is Green Bay, but you don't care who the opponent is. Wide receiver 17, Jauan Jennings. That's an oops as well, although the volume was there enough. He just didn't come through for you. Weird game last night. And then Lad McConkey, if he plays against Tampa at 18, you could make an argument for Lad top 12 if he plays, but I think we're all a little worried about that injury. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, that's going to be it because it's like a later game too, so you have to wait and find out with Lad. I will say I'm with you. If he plays, you just fire up Lad because he's been awesome. I know he's a rookie, but like him and Brian Thomas Jr., who we'll get to in a little bit, like those guys just stand out as really wide receivers who have been everything you could have asked for. Now, Jauan Jennings, I'm just going to rant for this on a second. 29% target share. Oh, so nice. 5.1 PPR points. Sometimes that happens. Now, this is great when you look at it in a season-long perspective. When you're in the playoffs, that doesn't help anybody out. So the process was right. The Cooper Kupp process was not right. That game was just a disaster. So at least the progression was good for Jennings. You know, sometimes they just have bad games. That happens. You live with it. You move on. A.J. Brown, I cannot fade this guy outside the top 10. He's too good of a wide receiver. And unlike Deebo Samuel, who looks like he might just be washed at this point, A.J. Brown still looks incredible. Looks like the best player, like best wide receiver in the NFL top 3.
Yes.
So I think they're going to find a way to feature A.J. Brown because you do not want this cloud hanging over you when you're a playoff team and one of the better teams who could potentially get the 1 seed. You don't want to deal with this nonsense. So you just feed A.J. Brown in this game. You make it happen. I usually don't buy into the squeaky wheel narrative. This time I'm going to. Like any matchup, even Pittsburgh, I don't care. You can put the best corner on the NFL. I think A.J. Brown's still going to win. So, yeah, that's why I have him at 7. Like, it's really hard for me to ever push A.J. Brown outside my top 10 wide receivers. He's just too good of a talent, man. And when he's too good of a talent, even in a bad situation, you just roll with it.
Yep. Agree with you completely. He is an absolute stud. You know who else is a stud? T. Higgins. Let me ask you a question, Jesse. When was the last time Joe Burrow threw for less than 300 yards?
Has he gone less than 300 in a game this year? I feel like he's been above it every game.
He had a weird stretch in the middle of the season, but it's been at least a month of at least 300 yards per game and sometimes more. And they are absolutely slinging the rock. Sure, Chase Brown has his days, but I think T. Higgins is going to get there on elite touchdown volume. He's scored in 3 of his last 4 games. In his last 6 games, he has 5 touchdowns. T. Higgins will get there for you. I have no reservations about playing him, especially against a L'Jarius Sneedless, say that 5 times fast, Tennessee secondary, who I think is without a bunch of pieces. That defense is falling apart. Yeah, it's already a bad defense and it's falling apart. And they just held Jacksonville to 10 points last week as well. So, who the hell knows? But it ain't going to be Jacksonville ain't no Cincinnati Bengals. That's for sure. So.
Yes.
Anyway, on that note, let's move to tier 4 wide receivers, 19 through 24. If I can do math in my head, I cannot. I just read it off the screen. Number 19, Jerry Jeudy playing at home against Kansas City. This should be a good matchup for him, and we know Jameis will sling it. Cedric Tillman also out. That just came out. David Njoku not ruled out. He's questionable. But if David Njoku doesn't play in this game, I mean, Jerry Jeudy is wheels up. So I love that. Garrett Wilson at 20. We talked about him. We'll talk about him again. Jacksonville just so juicy. And Aaron Rodgers can do it against bad defenses. He proved that last week. Malik Neighbors at 21. He's coming in a little bit questionable, but that Baltimore secondary is absolute trash. Tommy DeVito can at least get the ball to Malik Neighbors. He's going to get there on volume. He's probably not going to get on the end zone, but if he does, he's going to do well. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 22, trash quarterback play. doesn't matter against Cincinnati. Cincinnati is absolutely horrific on defense. Calvin Ridley should get there, and he might do very well if Levis can complete more than 50% of his passes. Levis turned into Anthony Richardson, which is a compliment. So maybe he didn't turn into early season Anthony Richardson. Let's get through the rest of these guys. Zay Flowers at the New York Giants. I am scared of this matchup, but we really shouldn't be. Zay is a talent. He's just a little more boom bust. But number 24, but who should probably be a lot higher. He's a lot higher in my rankings, Jesse. A lot higher. Adam Thielen at Dallas. We're going to give this man his flowers, but not Zay Flowers. I have him ranked well over Zay this week. Tell me about some of these guys, and then I'll talk to you about Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I'll leave Thielen to you because that's the most interesting. I'm going to say there is no wide receiver that has a better role in the NFL than Malik Nabers. He has the highest expected points per game and all that. It's just a terrible situation. And if you have Malik Nabers, you were going to play him. It's a good spot to play him in. It's just the offensive quarterback, right? Because we talk about the matchup. There's a defense named Baltimore that just can't stop anybody in the pass. So, you just fire them up, hope it works out. A few of these guys, this gets into, the Jacksonville defense and how bad it's been. One of the good ways to look at wide receiver rankings, and that's helpful, is Hayden Links posts a chart where it's offensive passing EPA versus defensive EPA. And when you get to that top right spectrum, it's a really, really good one. So you have the guys like Zay Flowers, like we talked about, these really good juicy matchups. This also goes to the Jets offense and why we like Wilson and we like Adams and we're so high on both those guys. Because it's Jacksonville. They suck. You're going to play those guys. So sometimes it's that simple. And yeah, you already hit on Judy and those guys. So Ridley, you just play Ridley. Now his role makes it a little bit more treacherous with Ridley and why he's so up and down because the A-dot's so deep down the field. Harder to complete those targets. But he's seen such a high target share. He's that entire offense. So this should be a get-right game for Calvin Ridley. So we play him and just hope it works out. If you're looking for the boom and you're trailing, that's the type of guy you should be playing in this. Yeah. If you're playing against a really high-scoring team and you need the points, play Calvin Ridley, man. Maybe he gives you 25, 30 points and you're looking really good. That's how you win your week.
That's it, man. Calvin Ridley, no matter what. You know who else, no matter what? Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, in his last 2 games, 10 targets and 11 targets. He catches most of them, and he puts up damn near 100 yards a game. You know how many times last season he had double-digit targets and 100 yards a game? 3 times. He also came really close a 4th time. He's had double-digit targets last year 6 times. He just does this. They just do this. Adam Thielen, 34 years old, still doing it, still cooking dudes out there. And he's going against Dallas. Dallas, I don't know if you've been watching football this year. The Dallas Cowboys suck. And Marshawn Obershawn, who's been the only defensive player who's been consistently developing this season, is now, I think he's out for the season. He's definitely out for this game, but I think they just put him on IR. It is bad in Dallas. They can put 3 guys on Adam Thielen. I don't care. I'm firing him up. This is a guy you can rely on in the fantasy playoffs.
Yes. He's bounced back into our lives ever since Bryce Young has come back. Thielen has stepped forward because Carolina, they don't have enough good wide receivers. So in a good team with good wide receivers, Thielen would be kind of just a whatever an ancillary piece. Now he's the focalized piece of that passing attack. So until he breaks the leg or he falls off completely, his old ass is going to hobble out there. He's going to give you 10 targets and he's going to give you probably double-digit points of fantasy. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, totally agree. Chuba is going to run wild, but that will only open up things in the passing game as well. Love Thielen, the number 1 target in Carolina. We're moving to wide receiver tier 5 now. These are some guys you can play, but they're probably more of the boom bust variety. We start with Mr. Boom Bust himself, Brian Thomas Jr. It's not his fault when he's a bust, but he's playing in Jacksonville. So that's kind of the issue there. Playing the New York Jets this week. I'm not sure if Sauce is playing. Is Sauce definitely out? I don't think it matters.
Yeah, he's been bad
but
too.
Yeah. So Brian Thomas, we love him. You fire him up. Wide receiver 25. Wide receiver 26, Jakobi Meyers, the only other game in town not named Brock Bowers. King Kobe, we love it. The volume is there. You fire him up against Atlanta in a juicy one. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 27. We're down on DK, but we probably shouldn't be this week. We're only down on him because of the emergence of JSN. I think both of those guys can eat this week. DK, wide receiver 27. DJ Moore, wide receiver 28 at Minnesota. Bad matchup. A lot of mouths. We said it earlier. They lost 7 in a row, the Chicago Bears. Yuck. But DJ Moore is still a talent. Wide receiver 29, Jaden Reed. Will he, won't he, is the question you have to ask yourself every week. It's a scary proposition in the fantasy playoffs, but I think you got to play him against Seattle, especially because, you're going to throw to him over Christian Watson. The only other guy who's really stealing a ton of targets from him is Tucker Kraft. I guess it depends if Romeo Doubs plays. I think at the moment he is slated to play. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then finally, Jalen Waddle, probably too low at Houston. He's been crushing the last couple of weeks at wide receiver 30.
Yeah, it's a fun group. I'll talk about Brian Thomas Jr. for a second. So I know we were really worried about Mac Jones being the quarterback. Well, guess what? Mac Jones loves himself some Brian Thomas Jr. In the games with Mac Jones as his starting quarterback, Brian Thomas Jr. has an insane target share. He has 25, 24, 40% of the targets. He's averaging 2.39 yards per route run. He's been awesome. And the nice thing is about him, they're actually moving him into the slot. And that's setting up really well for him, and it makes his life a lot easier. And he came out this week at a press conference. He's like, he wants the ball. He's like, I feel like I'm always open. Yeah, that's why receiver one stuff. And when you're Brian Thomas Jr., you don't have anybody else to throw to. Noah Van Ingram, we talk about, like, they're Christian Kirk's been out for basically the entire year. So it's basically been the Brian Thomas Jr. show. I need to move him up in rankings. Like, this is a really good spot. There is no worse passing defense based on EPA than the Jets. Yeah, they're that bad against defense, and you fire him up and you roll with it just because he's that good. We talk about the other guys in this tier too, as I can find my page. There it is. Jakobi Meyers, 3 straight games, double-digit targets. It was a Denver matchup. It was Kansas City matchup. 2 bad matchups. Does not matter. Jakobi Meyers continued to do his thing. Got Tampa Bay last week. It was a little bit of a letdown, but he was solid for you, 7 for 67. He gets the Falcons this week. You fire up Jakobi Meyers for confidence, because when the targets consolidate around pass attack options like it does with the Raiders and like it does with the Jaguars, you just play these guys because they're going to get double-digit targets to roll for you. So I like both those guys a lot this week. I'm firing them up everywhere I have them.
I love it. Totally agree with you. One thing, though, here, Jesse, as I alluded to, Jaden Reed, I'm going to ask you over or under 5 targets a game in his last 7 games for Jaden Reed.
It's been so bad. It's got to be under.
It's like 4.2 targets a game for Jaden Reed. A high of 6. He hit that twice. Otherwise, 4, 3, 3, 2, 1 targets per game. Yuck.
Yes, man.
I don't know. But it's Seattle. I mean, you could. They should.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Are you firing them up?
Yeah. I don't really want to. I will say you rank him there because, like, the thought process is good. We're like, oh, yeah, Jaden Reed. I feel like I should just move him down in rankings because it's so hard to trust him. Even when guys are out, like we talked about with Dobbs being out, what do you see, 1 target last week? It's just like he's not the guy he was earlier in the year for whatever reason, and that's the offensive scheme and environment. I think it's really they're just featuring Josh Jacobs to the point of, like, Jaden Reed becomes an ancillary piece. And that sucks for us, but I like Jaden Reed because he's a good NFL player. I don't know. I feel like the offense could use him. So design him up some targets, see how it goes this week before. But yeah, I'm going to have a hard time betting on him in the top 30 wide receivers. As we're talking about it, I'm moving down a little bit just because it's too tough to trust him, unfortunately.
Sadly agree. Let's move on to tier 6, wide receivers 31 to 36. At 31, a guy we have below Jaden Reed is Khalil Shakir, Mr. Everything in Buffalo. That probably needs to change. Immediately. At Detroit, Khalil Shakir 31, but he'll be moving up before Sunday. Darnell Mooney at 32, another guy we have below Jaden Reed. That needs to change. Darnell Mooney absolutely cooking in Atlanta. What are we doing with these rankings? Jordan Addison, I don't trust him this week. This is my fault. He's all the way down at 33. I completely blasted him down my rankings against Chicago. I'm not betting on 3 touchdowns or 1 touchdown this week. We'll see. He's 33. Marvin Harrison at 34, the rookie, down bad because his quarterback is Kyler Murray. Need we say more? Wide receiver 35 is Jameson Williams. Can always get there. I'm incredibly high on JML this week compared to the rest at 25. But, take all this with a grain of salt. I think I'm also the worst of the 4 of us in the weekly rankings week to week. So here we are. I like to take risks, folks. And number 36 to round it out, and we were at least a little bit right here, even though it should have been lower, is Deebo Samuel. Yuck. Jesse, save us from Deebo talk by talking about somebody else here.
Yeah, Deebo worried me a lot. I'll just say this real quick. Like, it was funny how everyone was like buying into the squeaky wheel narrative with Deebo, and I'm like, bro, have you watched Deebo play this year? He has not been good. So I was like, we're gonna put him there by default. What I feel good about. I will say Jordan Addison, his last 4 games, he's averaging almost 9 targets per game. That's really good. And I think people were very concerned about TJ Hawkinson coming back. Turns out Jordan Addison's just a good secondary NFL wide receiver. teams will focus on Justin Jefferson. It's making it easier on Addison. Now, I know the Bears matchup seems a little bit tricky. I don't know. You just fire up Addison, man. Like, we talk about Reed, like, I'm pushing him below Addison because one guy's doing it, the other guy's not doing it. So sometimes that's true. And yeah, Shakir's playing the Lions pass defense, man. They give up a ton of yards, and Shakir's been their most consistent wide receiver they've had the entire season. So yeah, you fire up Khalil Shakir and make it happen. Like the guys in this range, the one guy that really worries me is Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, yeah, I thought we were getting the breakout earlier in the season, and then it kind of regressed where we're not getting the Harrison breakout. The targets are okay, but like, I would much rather fire up Mooney against Vegas. I'd much rather fire up Addison. I'd much rather fire up Shakir, all those guys. And then J-Mo is just super boom bust. So if you want to take the big swing like we talked about earlier, take the swing on J-Mo, see if it works out, because this game's going to have a ton of points. It would not surprise me to see this game just go bonkers where they score like 60-plus points combined. So if that's the case with, J-Mo, you just fire him up, it works out.
Yep. Let's put Jaden Reed below all these guys. I totally agree with you. Let's also ask Jesse this question. In his last 6 games, over under 8 targets a game for Khalil Shakir.
Ooh, it feels like that's right on the nose as far as targets. I will just say over just to be bold and go with it.
Yeah, I didn't do the math, but it's right there. It's right about 8 targets a game. So trick question because I'm lazy, but it's also just about 8 targets for the last 6. Really, for the last 7, 8 games, man. For the last 7 games, he's been absolutely crushing. He's the guy totally eliminated any sort of Dalton Kincaid narrative as like the number one target. Kincaid did that himself, but Khalil Shakir has really accepted the mantle. I know Amari Cooper looked good. I know Amari Cooper is going to be doing his thing, and I really like him going forward, especially in this matchup. But Khalil Shakir is just so damn good. You fire up both of those guys, and you don't worry about it, I think.
Yeah, Shakir's that yak monster on offense, and it gives him like a nice little floor. So yeah, until anything changes, man, you just fire up Shakir and you enjoy the ride because he's been good.
That's it. I think we'll hit one more tier, and then we will do kind of a best of the rest. We'll at least get you to the 40s, and then we'll throw out some names. So from wide receiver 37 to 42, we have Keenan Allen at 37. At Minnesota, bad matchup, but he seems to catch a lot of touchdowns. Another guy who only catches touchdowns, DeAndre Hopkins. They don't throw it to him a lot, but he catches those touchdowns in the end zone at Cleveland. Another good matchup there. The guy we just talked about, Amari Cooper at Detroit. Nobody playing at home, but these are some wide receivers of yesteryear who should be able to get it done in some meh matchups here. Elijah Moore coming on this season at 40 against KC. Michael Pittman at 41 at Denver because, well, he is an NFL wide receiver. That's all I got on Michael Pittman. At number 42, Devonta Smith, Mr. Unnecessary for the Philadelphia Eagles offense. He can get there because of his talent, but he's certainly not going to get there because of his offense. We're just saying maybe he scored a touchdown this one, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? With Devonta Smith, like the targets just have not been there. He hasn't seen more than 7 targets since week 3. Like it's just been like an okay part of the passing attack. It's just really hard on that offense because they're the run heaviest offense in the NFL, which is crazy to think about, but it is what it is. It's just you're just betting on talent against Pittsburgh. So if you really want to make the bet, but I think you can go elsewhere over like the Devonta Smiths of the world, personally. It's just, it is what it is. I like Elijah Moore a lot. I know Kansas City people have this narrative about Kansas City, but their defense is really showing cracks, and they're struggling to generate pressures. So with potentially we're losing David Njoku, and like we have Tillman potentially coming back, we don't know. It really just centralizes around Judy and Elijah Moore. 2 guys that the community has been all over the place with over the years because they've been good, they've been bad, they've been up and down. But in the Jameis Winston passing attack, he's going to be pushing 40 passes in this game. And if that's the case, man, Elijah Moore is going to see those targets. That'll be solid for you. So I like him. I like Cooper. He's finally coming on. We'll see if it holds up for him. And then, Hopkins, like you talked about, this is just the old guy tier of guys where it's like these guys have done it consistently over the years. Now, Cooper's not Keenan Allen or DeAndre Hopkins old, but he's pushing that narrative. He's pushing 30. So in this range of players, I'm confident firing all those guys up. They seem like decent 4 plays for you this week.
Yeah, but talk about an old man, Amari Cooper, just 30 years old, but he's getting Adam Thielen level targets, at least last week. 14 targets last week, only caught 6 of them, but for 95 yards. Him and Allen still were not on the same page. Allen was figuring it out. We know how good he is, and that was a shootout. Another 14 targets could be in the works here against Detroit and that really, really tough secondary, especially in the wide open middle of the field in Detroit with whatever they're throwing out there and calling a linebacker these days. Nowaski, and I don't. That's a real starting Detroit linebacker. Look it up. But like, like, I don't know what we're doing over here at linebacker in Detroit. Dan Campbell seems like he's a guy who likes him some linebackers. But Amari Cooper is going to get over and get his against these corners. And there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Do I love him in week 16 against Christian Gonzalez in New England? Not necessarily, but I will play Amari with confidence in this game against Detroit, especially over these other names here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, that makes sense. Like, it's just that type of range player. You're like, why the heck not? And if it's coming together right in the playoffs round out, this is exactly when we need it, baby. So, shine up once again, and we'll be looking good, I would say.
I agree. There's some other names here in tier 8, but I don't really care about them. I know that you will have some questions about who to start and who to sit, and that's when you join us on Saturday for a live roundtable, or Sunday before game time for our start questions. We do those live, and you can just post your questions right in the chat, and we get to every single one of them. But for now, we'll go through the best of the rest. I got a few names just to throw out here. We got Rome Odunze as our first man out at wide receiver 43. He's got a terrible matchup at Minnesota. We got Tank Dell, who used to be a fantasy thing and no longer is, at 44. Nick Westbrook Akine at 45. Mr. I catch a touchdown every game except for last week, but he's playing Cincinnati, so it's a juicy matchup. I think you can trust him again. And then you got Xavier Worthy, QJ. You got Demario Douglas if you want to go the PPR route. Maybe Josh Downs gets into things because Pittman is totally blanketed in Denver by the best Surtain. So we got a lot of options. Jalen McMillan, who do you like here? Who are you willing to start here in the best of the rest?
Ooh, I think McMillan's interesting because he's kind of under the radar coming off the injury. He's seen a decent amount of targets. If you want to fire him up, you can. I'm going to bet on Xavier Worthy, and I know that seems treacherous.
Yeah, I like it.
The Browns just lost another cornerback, Greg Newsome, on the IR. This is a game that's going to shoot out is the way I expect it to go, because they're at least one way or the other. Like, the Browns are going to force this game to shoot out. If Winston throws those interceptions, pick sixes, it's going to go that way. Or if he gets the yards and they hit, I think that's how it kind of works out. So I like him. Yep. Yeah, Tank Dell, man. I'm just not doing it. I can't. It just has not worked out the entire year. I have no reason to believe why it's going to work out this week of all the weeks. So he has the name cachet, but I would just rather bench Tank Dell and trust other players like Rome Odunze, who's wide receiver 17 in usage over this past month. You could do it. It's a bad matchup, but we're talking about guys in this range. You want to do Xavier Legette, Stonehands himself, you can. It's in this range of players, right? You're just kind of taking the ceiling shots because the floor is not really going to help you out with these guys because it's kind of low. So if you want to go Josh Downs against Denver, sure. Or we talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., I know he's a little bit above these guys, but it's just this range of players kind of gross. So I know Westbrook is going up against Cincinnati, and they're probably going to have to score a lot of points. So that's how you talk yourself into it. But yeah, I have him at wide receiver 52. I don't have a lot of confidence in him. I just don't think he's that good of a player. So I'd personally rather go with Christian Watson or Xavier Worthy, take the true ceiling shot guys in those games, and just fire them up because I have more confidence in the talent of those guys than I do Westbrook personally. For you, kind of who are the guys that you're kind of focusing on this outside the best of the rest range?
There's a few guys. Joshua Palmer is interesting to me, especially if Lad McConkey does not play. I want to fire up Joshua Palmer against Tampa. If Lad plays, that's more of a risky bet, but I don't hate it if you have to. Tim Patrick is a guy at wide receiver 64. I am not chasing the points on. I think it's interesting because of the matchup with Buffalo, but you're not going to get 2 touchdowns off of 4 targets every single week. So Tim Patrick, I think, can stay on your bench. One more guy I am interested in as I scroll deep down the ranks here is Kayshon Boutte of the New England Patriots at Arizona. I think he's got a chance here to do something. He's been coming on with Drake May. They just had their bye week. There's a good chance he's further integrated in this offense, and these 2 rookie wide receivers for the Patriots have not taken the mantle. Boutte's been out there. He's been seeing the looks. I do like him as a sneaky start, but there's going to be a lot of guys injured for me to play Boutte this week. I will tell you that. And then Josh Dobbs, if he is playing, he did have a couple of full practices this week. 2 straight practices from Thursday. I'm not sure where he is today, but if he plays, that could be very interesting, and he'll need to move up my ranks. Quick question, just a quick little game here before we leave, Jesse. I am going to mention a wide receiver and his matchup, and I just want your gut reaction. In a standard league, let's say 2 flexes, so nothing too crazy in the starting lineup. 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes. Are you starting this guy? Gut reaction, yes or no? Are you ready?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Ray McLeod at Las Vegas.
No.
Demario Douglas at Arizona.
If it's PPR, potentially. If it's like half or standard, no.
Michael Wilson in that same game against New England.
No, I don't want to do Michael Wilson. I know. Yeah, it's better to be like a 36-team league or something for me to do Michael Wilson.
Wan'Dale Robinson against Baltimore.
All right, maybe. Yeah, I can be talked into Wan'Dale Robinson PPR leagues. So we could do that. We could do that, folks.
MVS at at home versus Washington.
If he had Derek Carr, hell yeah. With Jake Hader, I don't know how it's gonna work. You might have to go elsewhere for that one. That just sounds like a trap on a trap, folks.
It is. Devon Vele. A lot of people are facing this decision against Indy.
Yeah, if you're desperate, I don't mind Vele. He's been a target around this year. He could do it again. I would do Vele over most of those guys we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Here's another one I think is in that range. Sterling Shepard at Los Angeles Chargers.
I'd personally rather just go McMillan if we're going to do those guys. I know Shepard hasn't been bad, but I have a hard time trusting Shepard, man. It's been not been bad. Those are 3 straight games of 6+ targets. So the Chargers are a tough matchup. So I think it's probably not great to start him. I think it's a more or less foreplay.
Agree. And last one, if I can find the guy that I'm looking for, because I forgot his name, but he exists in the real world. And this is me trying to stall as I find him. Coming off the bye at Denver, Alec Pierce.
Yeah, he's such the best ball guy. I will never be able to, I'm not going to be able to talk myself on Alec Pierce, but, the thought process is there if you really want to shoot the ceiling shot, right? Because Richardson's only good throwing it 50 yards down the field, and there's Alec Pierce. So if you truly need the desperation Hail Mary, you're down by 40, you might as well throw Alec Pierce in there because why not? What's the worst that could happen?
Agree with you. If you had to guess, how many yards does Alec Pierce have over his last 2 games?
I have no idea, honestly. I haven't even seen his stats. So I will tell you, a couple weeks I checked and he was on pace for 900 yards. So I think he's doing pretty good. I think he's doing all right. How many yards does he have? I have no idea.
Of his last 2 games, if I do the math, it looks like 55 yards total, 3 receptions. Not great. But he has that boom game in his repertoire, so we'll see. But guess what? We are really dumpster diving here, so we are going to get out of here. We are the Fantasy Football Universe. We're available on our website at .com. We are available on Twitter. We are on TikTok, Instagram. Jesse did an AMA on Reddit yesterday. I think you can go check that out. You can find us anywhere you want, but especially and specifically on YouTube. Please come, subscribe. Everything you see here is available. We are live 4 to 5 times a week. We are producing and distributing to you daily content in video, in written form. We are all over the map and everywhere that you want to be for your fantasy football knowledge and to help you win your leagues. At least we hope. So we do our best. So for this guy, I am this guy. We are these guys. We will see you next time.